Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've been looking forward to tonight. I've got a super guest. We've been having a good time here in the studio, so hopefully that'll just kind of come right on into the show. Before we get into telling you about our guest tonight, I want to tell you just a bit about the Spiritual Broadcasting Network and where we're headed. We've got about 4 new shows coming online. If you spend a little time with our website, you'll find we've got over 300 hours worth of videos, not including our shows. We have a great many documentaries, spiritual documentaries. We've got some films there, really top-notch stuff, not just, it's the kind of place I think you can spend half hour, you can spend 2 or 3 hours, you can even find yourself whiling away a whole afternoon here. So whatever you're looking for spiritually, you will find it there. If you don't, drop us a line and we'll see if we can't get it on for you. My guest tonight is Sharon Parker. Sharon has written a book called Selling with Soul, and you'll notice that selling your soul is crossed out. Unfortunately, we're going to have, it looks like a bit of trouble with the internet connection tonight. Sharon's connection is not that great and she keeps dropping. So but we'll have the audio for the whole evening, and we'll reconnect as necessary. Tom, do we have Sharon on the line?
Yes, you, George.
Hey, Sharon? We lose her audio too, Tom? I don't have her at all. Okay, looks like it's going to be one of those nights. We've got a bad connection. Fortunately, we've just got brand new equipment in the office here and made our internet connection about twice what it was before. So, Sharon, have I got you on the phone?
You do. Hi.
Hi there. Well, it looks like we're probably going to have some technical difficulties, but you know what? We'll just wade through them. I think
so.
Yeah,
we won't let the technology get in the way of a good conversation.
Absolutely not, and I'm sure we're going to have that. Well, you know, before I've introduced your book, and your title it's very clever and certainly speaks to exactly the thing that salespeople run up against. How do you bring your spirituality, your soul, your everything about you into a sale when there's so much depending on it? It's pretty easy to fall either way, into the light or fall into the dark. And
that's right. There's a lot of pressure on salespeople that makes it hard to make a good decision.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into that, let's find out a little bit about Sharon. What is your background? Matter of fact, let's go back to like where you were raised and so forth. We won't spend a lot of time there, but where are you from?
I grew up in Wisconsin. And you can hear the flat vowels even today. I always say you can take the girl out of the flatlands, but not the flat vowels out of the girl.
Where at in Wisconsin?
In a small town in the central part of Wisconsin, Wyowega. And then I lived in Milwaukee for about 20 years before I moved out.
My godparents were from Cudahy.
Oh, Cudahy!
Yeah, I knew you would recognize that. Sure. Well, the one thing about Milwaukee is, there's definitely a bar on every corner. If you go thirsty in Milwaukee, it's your problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Without question. So, what was your family life like? What was your spiritual upbringing?
Well, I was brought up in a Lutheran family, a Wisconsin Lutheran family. But it never quite fit.
Didn't quite take, huh?
I was in a narrow little box, and it just it never felt right to me. So I started a search, even as a teenager, studying all the other religions and trying to find something that did fit. And I love the title of your program, Spiritual Not Religious, because that's what I learned, was that spiritual was all about what they all have in common, whereas religious was all about this is how we're different.
Absolutely. That's a nice way of putting it. I've never heard it put quite so succinctly. That spiritual path is so vital to who we are and to actually, you know, to our soul, isn't it?
It truly is. If we don't pay attention to that part of us, we don't, you know, we're not taking advantage of our connections with our inner wisdom, you know, our sense of conscience, our core values. All of those things tie together, and they're such an essential part of who we are.
Yeah, and I think the biggest mistake, Susan, is to, or Sharon, is to take whatever somebody teaches us, and that's the gospel, that's the way it is, and search no further. It really
Absolutely.
puts us in a really bad light. So, what's your background as far as sales are concerned?
Well, I was doing administrative work at a hospital, a medical college, and I was looking for the next level position, and every counselor I talked to said, "Oh, you should go into sales." You know, and my reaction was horror. It's like, "Oh my God, why does this guy think I'm sleazy? You know, what am I doing wrong?"
Absolutely.
And ultimately, I had bills to pay and was a single parent, so I took the advice and went into sales, and was taught a whole lot of garbage, like most salespeople are, that just doesn't allow us to do our jobs in a way with integrity at the front.
What were you selling early on?
I was selling computers, mini computers.
Were they clones?
No, this was actually pre-personal computers. That tells you how old I am.
Okay, right.
This was back when Ken Olson was running Digital Equipment Corporation, and he thought the PC was just a fad.
Boy, there's a company that totally blew it, didn't they?
Yeah, I know. They had such a great market share, and suddenly it was gone.
Yeah, they had a real strong arm on the market and didn't see the bus coming, did they?
Yeah, they missed the trend. I mean, it's kind of like being the best manufacturer of buggy whips in Detroit. You know, it's just not going to work.
It's not going to happen, is it? Well, yeah. Well, what kind of things did they teach you that you felt uncomfortable with?
Well, the one that really sticks is always be closing. ABC, always be closing. Which, you know, really comes down to always be pushy.
Right.
And what I experienced was that anytime we try to push somebody in a direction they're not ready to go, we just create more resistance, and we make it impossible to establish any kind of human connection.
Right. And the truth is, people want to buy from those they like and trust.
Yeah, and who don't try to take their power away.
Right.
You know, I think more and more buyers are sophisticated, they're knowledgeable. They don't want someone trying to overcome them. They want somebody to allow them their power while keeping their own.
Absolutely. I don't think any of us like to be sold. Really?
No, I don't think any of us like to feel that we've been manipulated in any way. It just leaves a bad feeling all the way through.
Well, there's also that part of it that's very, very arrogant. And, you know, in the idea that we can do that to another and push people around. And that really, you know, that gets into a person's body. And
you know, it does. When you think you know more than anybody else in the room, and you're convinced that you've got the corner on the truth, you can't establish a human connection. I think that's why, you know, one of the 7 habits that Stephen Covey wrote about was seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Absolutely. And Covey just passed here this past week, didn't he?
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's sad, but unfortunately, we're all headed there.
Mm-hmm. He really, I think, was instrumental in carrying a message of integrity.
Well, he changed the whole landscape of sales, didn't he?
He did. He really did.
Which is pretty interesting in a time where what you were just talking about was so prevalent. You know, that, you know, pushy kind of sales. My show's producer here, Tom Johnson, was in stock sales for years. You know, back 25 years ago, and that, you know, certainly I listened to some of the tales he tells, and it's like pretty powerful stuff.
Yes, it is, and that's certainly a good example of an industry where people are expected to turn over a certain number of deals and investments by whatever means necessary, whether it's fear, whether it's, making the customer feel that they've only got a limited opportunity. All of those kinds of things that I was taught as a new salesperson, if they ever were effective, I think have gone way past their useful life.
Well, I'll tell you what, I guess we all probably have had experiences with salespeople that have turned us a bit sour. You mentioned car salesmen to most people, and they, sales of any kind, they think the word you used earlier, sleazy, and
Right.
so let's talk a bit about some of the things that are in your book that are different, but yet effective. Because what I found in selling, I found that if I just listened to people, they would tell me what they wanted, and tell me
There you go.
Tell me where to go.
Well, sometimes they tell you where to go, and not in a nice way, but
oh, that's
yeah,
for sure.
They do. They do. If you listen and you ask the right questions, you have a chance of establishing that mutual respect. Salespeople are taught to ask the wrong questions. Things like, well, do you buy this kind of widget? How many do you buy a year? Do you have a budget to purchase more right now? All of those questions, every single one of them translates into, hey, I'm here to sell you something, and it's all about me.
So what is a buyer's best defense against that kind of a salesman?
When I was on the other side of the table and I was buying, I would simply say, nope, we're just not in the market right now. Sorry, we'll let you know if we become interested. Most salespeople had no idea how to respond to that. They'd started off on the wrong foot, and then they firmly shoved that foot into their mouth.
Well, salesmen are trained to answer objections, and the truth is, no is not an objection. You can't get past it. So that's the best defense, isn't it?
Yeah, and your best chance of getting past that at all is to understand why you're getting a no.
Right.
If you can get that customer to tell you what it is they hope to accomplish, why they even took the time to see you, there had to be something. They had to have some reason to agree to see you in the first place. There's some area where they think you might be able to help them.
Right.
Otherwise, they wouldn't waste their time. I mean, if somebody sees you just because they're lonely, you're talking to the wrong person.
Well, I think one of the things, I think the way I'd like to do this with you, Sharon, is I think I'd kind of like to just do an overview of each chapter, because the way you've got it laid out is really, really very effective.
Okay.
One of the things you talk about first is what is sales. Tell us a bit what your definition is. What is sales?
Yeah, to me, sales it's a simple thing. It's not an easy thing, but it's a simple thing. It's matching what you have to offer, whether it's products, services, ideas, expertise, to what other people need to achieve their goals. When you make that match, that's a selling opportunity. If you don't make that match, if people don't have any reason to care about what you offer, that's not a selling opportunity, and you need to walk away and look elsewhere.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you as a salesperson who's going to be effective, you can't be so totally self-centered you're not including your prospect.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, if it's all about you and can I sell you something, can I? You're going to meet no and resistance far more often than anything else. And if somebody does say yes, give us a quote, they're usually going to use that quote to beat up their preferred vendor on price. They aren't serious about working with you because you haven't established that trust.
Right. Well, one of the things you say that I think is so hugely important, maybe you'd kind of explain to us what you mean by it. You say, first, do no harm.
Oh, yeah. Part of what I recommend to people, whether they're growing a small business or whether they're in business-to-business sales, is understand your own mission statement. And for me, that starts with, I only represent quality products. And, the second point is I cherish my reputation for integrity, and I won't do anything to hurt that. And the last point is my success comes in direct proportion to how much I help others succeed. So if I find that I'm not representing quality, that the company I work for is delivering shoddy goods, or they're pressuring me continuously to do things that don't feel right in my core, then I need to either try to change that or I need to look for another employer. And one of the good news points there is that salespeople are always in demand. It's the one job that every company says they have trouble filling. So we need to not be afraid to walk when we feel like we're being asked to compromise our principles. Because at the end of the day, that's all we have is our reputation.
Absolutely, and reputation is so important. Well, you know, the reality is, yes, you know, salesmen are always in demand, but even more importantly, I think, is for the company that has integrity is locating that salesman that has integrity.
Yeah. And you know, where the chain breaks down so often is at the sales manager level.
Right.
I work with so many salespeople who, they get it. They want to sell with integrity. They want to build a reputation for quality and for delivering on their promises. And yet they're constantly harassed by a sales manager whose only thought is, what are you going to close this week? You know, someone who's pressuring them to, quick, offer that customer an additional 10% discount to see if you can close them this week. Well, the salesperson knows that it's not about the discount or the price. The customer's working through their buying process.
Right.
And that suddenly running in and saying, oh, special deal if you buy today, is going to cost them credibility. And yet they have this ongoing pressure. So more people leave their jobs because they don't trust that their manager has their back than for any other reason. And in sales, I think that's why sales managers have the highest turnover of any of those jobs.
Well, a good sales manager really is going to know his salesperson enough to know whether he can trust them or not and allow them the latitude necessary to do what they need to do.
I agree. And a good sales manager is going to know how to manage and how to coach. And managers, you know, do a lot of telling and communicating information and setting expectations. Coaches help people overcome the obstacles on their path.
Right.
And too many companies promote a good salesperson to manager. They teach them all about the financial aspect of that job. But they don't invest in their ability to work with different personalities, to help motivate a team, to help people overcome obstacles. And that's a critical element of building a successful team.
So how important do you think the spiritual aspect of a company and you know, not just the spiritual beliefs, but the spiritual behavior? I mean, how much in order to get to this place where you're selling with soul instead of selling your soul, how important is our spiritual life in all of that?
I think it's the core part. Just like I recommend that individual salespeople have a mission statement that reflects their core values, every company has a mission statement. The test is not whether the mission statement is well written, it's whether their behaviors are in alignment with
Absolutely.
that mission. And that's what we have to watch for in terms of the company we choose to represent. Are we seeing consistency?
Well, it seems to be, in my experience, that all starts really with the head guy, the owner, the president, the CEO, whoever it is, because the corporation or the company really tends to take on that person's behaviors, personality, and everything about them.
I think you're right. I think the leadership of a company right at the top level has to model the values and model the behavior they're asking other people to follow. It's not enough just to talk a good game. You have to also practice what you preach. And that's really the only way to inspire other people to be their best.
Well, it's one thing to go to the church or the synagogue or the ashram or wherever your place, your spiritual place is. on a Saturday or on a Sunday or a single day,
Right.
and not bring that into your business life. You know, that's one of the things here with Spiritual Broadcasting Network is that we really have that opportunity to meld the two. And having been a salesman my whole life, and I've worked for some of the people that you talked about who had zero integrity and zero tolerance, and who were so self-centered they didn't even, you know, there just wasn't anything left.
Right.
To be able to get to this kind of a space and to be able to work from that level really feels good. You know, it's soft, but it's working.
Yeah, the thing about it is that we all have an inner compass. You know, we all have a moral compass.
Absolutely.
We all have an inner voice. And when we're acting in ways that are contrary to that, our body tells us. I mean, that's when we reach for the Maalox or the Tums, and we've got a terrible headache, and our back goes out, and so when we're doing our work, our day-to-day business, in a way that is inconsistent with what we believe, we suffer for that. We carry a huge load of stress, and as you said, even if we end the week by going to church or synagogue or in a lengthy meditation session, that's not a cure. That's a brief time out. But day to day, we have to make choices and allow for space for that inner voice to guide us, because we will pay the price physically, spiritually, in terms of our customers' trust. We'll pay the price if we're acting not congruent with our values.
Absolutely. And if you take that a step further, actually that guidance system you're talking about, I find right in my solar plex area. And when I combine that with my head and the other kinds of communication places that I have in my body, and my empathic abilities come into play, everything starts to really come together. And I can know which way to go, left or right, and just follow that and know that somewhere down the road, whether I make the sale or don't make the sale, today it's going to be the right thing.
That's right. And when you go home, knowing that you did your best work that day, whether you won a sale or didn't, that you did your best work and you acted in a way that you can be proud of, that's when you really start to feel your work life, your home life, all those things come into balance.
So what I'm hearing you say, as far as people out there who are living a spiritual life, still needing to make a living, and there's nothing wrong with making a good deal of money. No. we tend to sometimes think that if we're spiritual, we're not supposed to have wealth, but that's not valid at all. But it really is about how did we get that wealth. But what I'm hearing you say is that, like priority number one for a candidate for a job is to really look at the company.
Yeah, who are you representing, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, not just can I get the job, but first, do I want the job?
Yeah, exactly. Is this really what I want to do? Does this feel like it fits? Otherwise, you walk around feeling as uncomfortable as if your clothes were the wrong size, and everyone picks up on that.
Well, in a market like today, that idea may sound foreign, that you're going to you would turn down work because of your integrity. A lot of people are having trouble out there. But the reality is a good salesman, someone who has a good reputation, can do that no matter what the market is.
Yes, they can.
And that's why it's so vitally important to take care of that reputation through all times.
That's why point 2 in my own mission statement is cherish my reputation for integrity, because it's precious and it can so easily be lost.
One of the things you say, and before and I'm going to want you to explain the word for those people who might be listening who don't understand. You suggest that the close, which most people think is the end of the sales process, is really the beginning. Explain the word close first, and then tell us what you mean by that.
Well, the way people are taught to sell, the close is asking for that order and getting it.
Right.
And a lot of sales training programs teach you all kinds of, persuasion and manipulation methods for getting that done. The way that I believe sales goes right is when you understand at the beginning what it is that customer is trying to achieve. You stay in alignment with that all through the process, so you're neither pushing nor pulling that person. You're facilitating their process. And at the end of that, after you've gone through proofs, after they've seen examples, and everybody's looked at the cost benefit, the close should be the next logical step. If you reach that point and the customer has indicated they are ready to buy, there's no reason not to ask the simple question, are we ready to move forward?
Right.
And I think a lot of people are so afraid to ask that. You know what I see, especially with people who are in a self-growth industry or who are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, they get all the way to the point where they feel they have a connection with their potential client, and then they're afraid to ask for that investment. That reluctance to associate a price with what they offer. Some of that, I think, comes from feeling doubt about their own values. Some of it comes from what you said, is that little bit of shame that, oh my gosh, if I'm really spiritual and I'm really about helping people, I shouldn't be making much money. I should be starving.
Right.
Those things they're based on a misunderstanding of what selling is about. Because when you do sell your ideas, your services, your products to somebody who needs them to achieve their goal, you are providing a valuable service. And the quid pro quo there is that they get what they need to succeed, and you get what you need to further your efforts.
Well, if you think about sales in the broadest of terms, nothing happens in a marketplace without sales of some sort. Everything revolves around sales.
That is so true. Sales is the only job that creates more jobs.
Absolutely.
I work with engineers who think, oh, no, it's all about product design. Well, go ask Ken Olsen how that worked out for digital, or people who think it's all about having a better manufacturing process. All of that can result in nothing more than stockpiles of inventory that's costing you money to carry. Nobody benefits until something is sold.
Well,
the job is the most vital job in our economy. It drives business at every level.
Well, when you talk about the engineer and the importance of design, when you look at Apple Computer and Steve Jobs, he was the master of design. But it's pretty easy to, to stop there. But if you really watch Jobs, he was a super salesman. And
he was.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the secret to his success was that he saw his mission as changing people's lives, leveraging technology in ways that had never been used, and doing it in a way where somebody could look at it and say, oh my God, that really makes a difference for me. It was all about the user and what they were going to experience. And
in the computer business world, he really understood that price wasn't everything. Exactly. That you could command a good value for a good product.
That's right. And I think it's important for all of us to realize that the work that we do is vital. The work that we do drives this economy. And when we do it to the best of our ability, we certainly deserve adequate compensation for it.
Absolutely. You talk about growth through conflict. What's that look like? What are we talking about with that?
Well, that's an area, again, where I take issue with traditional sales training. They talk about overcoming obstacles and, getting people to see it your way. Do you want it Tuesday or Wednesday? All of these silly questions. When conflict happens because we are not either aiming at the same goal or not understanding each other correctly. So to me, when conflict surfaces, we need to tackle it head on and start asking questions to understand where that person's coming from. Not avoid it, not say, oh my God, if I tell this customer that deliveries are slipping on this product, I may lose the order. The conflict is a chance to show to the customer once again their commitment to honesty and service, and to understand what it is they're really concerned about. What are they really afraid of? And if you can't address it, if you can't help with it, you need to be upfront about that.
And that really speaks to that. You know, we were talking earlier about people want to like and trust whoever they're buying from. It speaks to that trust issue. When we start, you know, dancing around the issue, people, the first thing they think is you're out to do them some kind of harm.
Right. You're covering something up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be sometimes the simplest of things, can it? What, you know, one of the things you talk about as really as a problem for salespeople is temptations. What?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, the sales world is changing, albeit slowly. But historically, the sales job involved wining and dining customers and taking them on junkets. And, you know, when I first started working with a lot of industrial salespeople and electrical wholesalers, you know, it was not at all uncommon for the salesperson to be expected to take those customers to strip clubs or take them to a casino or something like that. And, you know, two things have changed. One is that companies are more careful now about their own ethical guidelines. Customers can't accept gifts over a certain amount and so on. But also salespeople, I think, are starting to recognize that that is not a way to gain respect.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, it turned out to be a really big training ground for Alcoholics Anonymous, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of salespeople were taught that it's all about the relationship, that you have to build a relationship. You have to be the guy's buddy.
Right.
And, you know, customers today are way too busy to manage that kind of selling effort. They've got plenty of friends. They've got way more goals than they can possibly address. If you can't bring them something of value from a business perspective, they're not interested in spending their weekend fishing.
Well, you know, there's another aspect to that whole thing about buying from your friends. Unfortunately, that puts you in a really vulnerable spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, liking and trusting someone is one thing, but, you know, like there are some pretty unscrupulous people in the sales field who make more money off their friends than they do from a stranger.
Yeah, there are unscrupulous people on both sides of the table.
Absolutely. So are you when you're talking about temptations, is that one of them where you'll take advantage?
It is. Yeah, it is. There are these little moments. People think, you know, when you talk about selling your soul, you know, people picture signing a contract in flaming ink with the devil and walking off with a big bonus check. But that's not how it happens. You know, it happens with small decisions during the course of every day. A customer asks you, well, could you just knock 10% off this, and that way for sure I can get it passed, I can get it through. And you know in your gut that that's not going to make the difference. A customer says, please don't call, you know, on my boss because, you know, I have the power here. I don't want you going over my head. I'll keep you from selling here if you do. And you know in your gut that's wrong because you need to talk to everybody who's going to be involved in the decision and in the implementation in order to do it right.
Uh-huh.
All these little challenges come along, and each time we say, well, this makes my stomach hurt a little, but I'll go along with it this time. It's like chip, 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 little pieces of our soul are falling away.
Well, you talk about the need for spiritual role models. Do you think salesmen actually think about that?
Well, I think that they think about role models. I think a lot of salespeople have in mind somebody they admire and they wish they were as successful as that person is. And certainly I've worked with a lot of salespeople, especially the last few years, you know, who are very open about their religious values.
Right.
The thing that I really emphasize when I'm training salespeople is it helps us define our center, our moral code, if we can think of people that really exemplify it. so when I think about people that I really admire for the impact they've had in this world, the list comes from all over. It comes from, it's Gandhi, it's Martin Luther King, it's so many people that have had a huge impact. Now, each one might not represent all my values, but when I put them together, I get a pretty clear picture of what's important to me.
Right. Well, there are, interestingly enough, in the last few years, we've seen seminars that are, that are selling products that are built around spiritual concepts.
Yes.
Which is a pretty interesting kind of phenomenon, really. And it's like you have to ask yourself, is that in some way taking advantage? Is it? You know what I'm talking about with that? Because some of them get a little outlandish.
Yeah, and there are hucksters in every field.
Right.
I mean, I don't care what the field is, you're going to find good people and you're going to find people that are in it for a quick buck.
Right.
But what I think has changed, I look back at when I first wrote Selling with Soul, the first version of it. It was 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. They were making good money, the world was good, life was good. And then, no sooner had my book come out, then the whole world took a big shift. 9/11 happened. The Wall Street crash happened. The falling out of, of Exxon and different companies, Enron and so on. And, 10 years later, I realized that I wanted to rewrite my book so that it was current today.
Right.
And so many things have changed, especially the Internet. The influence of the Internet on the buying process is enormous. So when I rewrote my book to address the way people buy today and the way we need to sell in order to feel proud of this essential work we do, I was shocked that this time around people were saying, yeah, this is important. I've been thinking a lot about this. So I think there's been a fundamental shift in that a lot of people are recognizing that they only have this life, and how they choose to live it is how they'll be remembered. It's their legacy. And so spiritual values and spiritual concerns seem to be rising higher on the list of important things for many people.
Well, if you think about it, spirituality is often preceded by a fire somewhere close to your backside. And so, with all that's going on in the economy, it makes sense that, that it would be catching people's attention,
Well put.
So you talk about the importance of respecting yourself and your customer. In sales circles, I can't tell you how many times I would hear salesmen making fun of their customers and having no respect for them. And, it's pretty amazing how much of that went on.
And then they wonder why people make disrespectful remarks about them.
Exactly. So it's kind of like what you're talking about there really is what goes around comes around.
That's right. And if you don't respect yourself and the work that you do, you can't expect anyone else to respect you either.
Absolutely.
So many salespeople give away their power right from the first call. It's like, how many hoops do you want me to jump through? How high are they going to be? And they forget that, yes, the customer's knowledgeable and professional and so on, but so are they. They're knowledgeable. They're professionals. They're bringing expertise to the party. It's got to be a peer-to-peer relationship. If you approach it as, oh, please, Mr. Customer, buy from little old me, you're setting yourself up to not be respected and to not be treated in the way that you deserve to be.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I found myself in a situation where I was being disrespected, I would rather walk away from the sale.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it just isn't that important.
Yeah, when I feel that a customer is either unethical in their dealings or very disrespectful of me, I walk. And I tell salespeople, just tell your manager why you're doing it. If he wants to send somebody else in there, that's his call. But I don't choose to spend my valuable time in that kind of situation.
See, part of the reason I had you on the show is that, what you're talking about here is so relevant to this spiritual shift that's going on. And with salesmen and sales, really, like you said earlier, moving the market. It really moved. Without that part of it, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
For this shift to happen, individuals are going to have to change how they do business.
Right.
On a very day-to-day kind of, right in the field kind of, because if it doesn't happen there, it's just not going to happen. So, and what a time to really catch people's attention, except when they're having trouble. Because when there's plenty of money coming in, the sales are happening. We got the new car for the wife and my new car, and we got a 4-car garage and a 3-story house. I don't need to pay attention to this kind of thing.
That's right. Right. Life is good.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Well, I joke with my husband that I feel like my calling is to change business one salesperson at a time.
Well, that's about the only way it can happen, isn't it?
It is, because you look around our country and the world, the global economy, business has never been viewed so negatively as it is today. And when you get to it, business, where the rubber meets the road, is the salesperson-customer relationship. That's what drives it all. And if salespeople can see that they can do that job and be successful with integrity and empathy at the forefront and feel proud of the work that they do, that's going to have a ripple effect throughout business.
Underlying all of this, everything that we're talking about here, there's a kind of a hidden, unspoken problem, challenge, whatever you want to call it. And that is that somehow or other we, as a nation, probably much of the world, have fallen into this idea that how much money we have really spells what our self-worth is. And until that changes, we're going to keep experiencing the same kind of stuff, because people will sell their soul for that.
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, money is how we keep score.
Absolutely.
But my recommendation to salespeople is that they use a different test. That the test is, how are you going to be remembered? How are your family, your friends, your customers, how are those people going to remember you? Are they going to remember you as somebody that, added to their lives, who did their job with to the best of their ability, who lived with grace? Or are they going to remember you as just another sales guy? And when people talk about, well, everybody does it. I can compromise my values because, after all, in my industry, everybody compromises.
Right.
And then I suggest the flip side, and I say, okay, if you compromise this time, imagine that being reported on 60 Minutes. How do you think you'd look then?
Well, that idea of being hidden certainly allows for a lot of stuff to go on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think you're so keyed in on the right idea here, and that is living by spiritual principles in all areas of our life, including our sales life.
Right. Harmony. We all thrive when we have harmony across the different areas of our lives.
Absolutely.
That's not to say that sometimes your job will be more demanding and other times your family will be more demanding. It's not a question of equal time, but it's a question of feeling that harmony across all those areas.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Sharon, we're running right up against the clock now, so let's do a couple things. One, let's tell folks where they can pick up a copy of your book, Selling with Soul, not selling your soul. Where should they go to do that? Your website?
They can order it on my website. They can go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, and it is available as an ebook as well as in a hardcover and a softcover format.
Tell us your website. What is your website?
My website is www.sparker, like Sharon Parker, SparkerCoaching.com. And then on the website, they can sign up also for my weekly blog, which has sales tips, my newsletter, which has sales tips and explores some of these same issues, over the course of a conversation in the blog.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sharon, we are in the process of building our sales team, and I have every intention of making your book a part of our training program.
Yay, thank you.
Absolutely, for sure. And if you need any, if you want any recommendations, all you have to do is look our way. We'll be happy to do that.
I would love to see a review from you on Amazon. I'd love to get a reference from you. That's just great.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. I'll make that a point. And you've been a joy to have on. You're a pleasure. I think what you and I talked about really are the real nuts and bolts of a spiritual transformation. And unless we have these kinds of discussions about how we're going to work, how we're going to be with our family, how we're going to do all of these things that that are on the ground where our feet are, like we have all these high-minded thoughts of spiritual transformation, but until that stuff reaches our feet and our actions, it isn't going to work.
I love that description. I tell people, if you're in a bad situation and you want to say no to a customer, make sure that your feet move at the same time your lips move, because
absolutely, and as quickly.
Yeah, your actions speak louder than anything else.
Absolutely. Well, you've been a great time tonight. I'll look forward to meeting you at some point face to face. You get into the Sarasota area on a vacation or something, look me up. We'll have a cup of coffee.
I sure will. It's been really fun talking with you, George, and I'm so glad that the message of the book resonates for you.
Great. You have a good evening, and thanks for taking your time out. Bye-bye.
Thank you too. Bye.
Well, that's a whole different take on Tom on sales.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a modern message for like a modern time, and it's very timely, the whole thing. So, well, I had a good time tonight. I hope you enjoyed our time with Sharon Parker, Sparker.com. That's a pretty clever name. It reminds me of the dog races. Here comes Sparky, right? So anyhow, come back next week. I've got a great guest lined up for next week. And in the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive and have a fantastic week.